Hey everybody and welcome back. I am Titan9 and today we're going to do a bit of a personal video. I am talking about blue-white tempo here. I feel pretty good with this deck. I feel like I get a good handle on how it works and what its main objectives are. I just find that the blue-red matchup tends to be very tricky for me. The main issues, I'm not even quite certain what they are. It's not like I've never beaten the deck, but it feels like the times I beat it, it's I've gotten unlucky, or they've gotten unlucky, or one time I was able to trick a person into not attacking me to death. I don't want that to be the game. I know we're in this cyclical meta, where deck A is good against B, which is good against C, which is good against A, but there has I just refuse to believe they're like, oh, well, that's a bad matchup, I'm going to lose. You know, Magic, you can kind of do that and try to see what you can do to sideboard to help you out, but there must be some level of play that can be achieved here, so we're going to do some live learning as we go, and I'm going to try to think about lines that are here and where I might be going wrong, and we're going to see how that goes. It's still a meditation. We're still going to play best of 3 and do the normal thing, but I'm going to be a little less instructive here and a little more philosophical. We're going to do some soul searching here as we play through this video. So, quick look at this list. If you want to see the previous video and what the older lists look like, feel free to look above where the card is. But the changes are, I talked about that these were 4 of last time, and I was thinking, well, we could go down one of each, or one of them, to fit in some number of unforeseen incidents. What has changed my mind is when I was playing the Meteor decks and trying the unforeseen incidents in there, I found that I really liked them, this -3 AP, against like other big decks. When we have, when we have 6/6s, 7/6s, 7/5s kind of hurling at each other, 3 AP can win you a combat. Especially against a first strike Death Scythe, that feels particularly good. I thought that might be good here. It also has utility against aggro. You can get to blank one attack, and maybe that throws off their math or something, or they were expecting a base to explode, and suddenly it doesn't. But mostly it's for those bigger deck matchups, which I think is still important because that's where the meta is right now. We are in that meta where aggro decks are still having a tough time. They're finding a way to deal with all of the blockers that blue-white, I'm sorry, I mean, we have always had blockers, but that green-white has leaned into. They're finding ways around that, or they're taking advantage of them now teching for the mirror more than for the aggro decks. That's also why this Nail Argamar became a white base again, because this is definitely helpful in those bigger matchups when the games will go long naturally. The Nail Argamar was helpful in taking out attackers in the aggro decks, but there are less of them, so I think this is more important. We do have tools naturally in Sword Strike Gundam, bouncing unit when it attacks during a link. Hawk of Endymion, obviously, is a great bounce unit. Like I said, this unforeseen incident can work in a pinch there, and we have our blocker, Lefrith. We have our Isle Strike Gundam. And eventually, when we can get Unicorn Destroy mode, that's a good way to get out freshly played units that they throw down against us. So, depending on whether we go first or second, we have Lefrith into a Link Sword Strike, into an Isle, maybe it's linked, maybe it isn't. Like, that's a good 3-turn window to slow down our opponent's attacks, and we have our bases that also. Corsica gives us attackers where we can trade with them when they attack, and if we're against the big decks, we get to do our tempo plays, put a base down, and make a unit, or make a couple units, depending on how late in the game it is. So that's kind of the quick rundown. We don't have Zawarts like a traditional blue deck does. We do Demigaris, and you can also do GM. Either way, it's fine. You just need a 1-cost 2/2 that you can play on resource level 2. There are many forms of blue-red that we got to deal with. I wanted to do this Sailor version. It's a lot more aggro-y, has a lot more low-cost units, got their 2/2s in the form of Jin and GM, but sometimes they have Zaku Mariners. They're all pretty much the same units. Plus, they have the gun tanks to play out early. Plus, they have gun cannons. And there's a Federation package in this deck list, so you get Jigans for pretty cheap, too. Their Vesalius helps them bust base early with their little 2/2s. It gives them a little more heft, lets them trade into bigger units later on. I thought this would be a better one, because some of the problem that can happen sometimes is they just go wide, plus they have a big unit to hit your big units with, and that can cause a lot of trouble. I think the full frontal list is currently more popular these days, but I think this is a good way we get to practice a little bit against aggro by going against a deck like this. And also the blue-reddish package of top end with Kshatriya, Banshee, and then Grandpa Gundam plus the Delta Plus because we're doing Sailor. But you could also imagine these Deltas as other forms of Grandpas, or perhaps even a big Kshatriya, a baby Kshatriya. That would work with Marita or full frontal. But here's the deck. They kind of ping you down. They can rush you out early, and when the game goes longer, they have a way to back that up with their bigger units. Close combat to take out the units trying to rush them. And they have the 2 extra Sailor pilots, because this deck is pilot hungry, and when they can't find them, it's a lot easier to defeat them, because the deck's a little clunkier in that mode. That's part of the times when I get lucky, like when they don't find their pilots. Like, that gives me an opportunity, or when they pilot flood. Because some lists, yes, even if they don't have Sailor, they'll have 3 frontals and 3 armor, so they still have 10 pilots. Like, sometimes they flood on that. But we're going to give it a try. Hopefully we get some real games here, and none of us gets lucky or unlucky, and we can just see how to use our skill to defeat what seems to be a tricky matchup. I think most people would say this isn't the tricky matchup. The green-white is the tricky matchup. And I think that's true for traditional blue-white, the blockers version, because you just give them so much time to do their big game plan, and their Wing Zero blows up a lot of things, and you can't block it. It's got high maneuver. Death Scythe gets free attacks on things. Wing Human Mode gets to breach your blockers. Very frustrating thing. That's sort of where the tempo version came from. It was a good way to get under them. And so I don't think for tempo that's a problem too much anymore. But I think that has made this deck a little bit trickier. But maybe I'm just getting in my own head. We're going to find out. So thanks for sitting through some of those rambles as I kind of live think at you. But let's jump into some games and get into the nitty-gritty of this matchup, shall we? All right, this hand puts us in an awkward spot. We can obviously play this Demi-Garrison on turn 1 and attack into whatever they attack our base with on the following turn. We can even Hawk of Endymion a unit if their board starts to get out of hand. And we have it in case we find a Sword Strike at some point. We have that. We know we have that link. These 2 unicorns give me pause. We're not going to get to play them for 4 turns at best, and that's only if we find Banagher in the process. We have a white base in case they go super wide, but they could also just play a bunch of units and get a link by the time we play this white base and get it in 1 turn anyway. This hand just leaves us open to a lot of types of dying that are not ideal. Even if we didn't know who our opponent, well, I don't know. I try to imagine up against an aggro deck, because if they do get to rush you, like, it doesn't matter how teched you are against them. Like, you can have a hard time. And we know the red-blue's a bad matchup, or at least I feel that way in my mind. And they can play like an aggro deck a lot of the time, so you're sort of looking for a hand that helps against 2 tricky matchups, or 2 matchups that can end in non-games, in a manner of speaking. So we should be responsible here and take a mulligan. Like, it could work out, you know, next turn we could draw Razel, and the turn after that we could draw the Sword Strike. But even if we play that Sword Strike when we want to, now we've set ourselves back a turn on playing these unicorns. And again, that perfect draw doesn't let us find Banagher in that timely manner anyway. So probably we will just be responsible and take the mulligan. Okay, so we still got the Demi-Garrison, we still got the Hawk of Endymion, and then we also were nice and got the Lefrith. We have this Unicorn Destroy mode, which isn't ideal, but now that we've drawn this Unicorn, perhaps it'll get a little better. We also have the Isle for when we get there, as long as we don't have to play against our resource, play against Curve in that manner. Let's play our Demi-Garrison. I do miss having the Vesalius base to make my 2/2 a lot more of a potent threat. Yeah, they have played the 2 units. They're ready to go, as I feared. But we're going to be on defense in this game anyway, so it's not the end of the world here. We will pass. We have this Hawk of Endymion in an emergency. Hopefully we find the Sword Strike to make it a little better. We're going to let him get rid of our base. No blocker for this one. We might block this. Yeah, we did. Okay, they only wanted to attack with the 1. That was... Oh, no. It would have been responsible for them to only attack with the 1. Especially that now that they've played their pinger. But we will... They got the Razel, so we might as well... We're going to lose our Lefrith anyway. We might as well get some value out of it now. So we have the Banagher for the Unicorn into the Destroy mode, and we don't have to pilot it right away. We can just have it as a tempo play, which could be pretty nice. They could Amuro me this turn, in which case my Lefrith won't really be doing anything. But at the same token, my Demi-Garrison then won't be doing anything. It was still right to block, to keep my base active, so now they have to at least waste this gun tank on it. And we could Hawk of Endymion this Razel anyway, if we wanted to do that in emergency. We're going to get to play Isle Strike next turn, though if they Amuro Gundam us, we will play the Banagher Unicorn to finish it off. If they tap it and kill it with the Gundam for free, it is what it is. We might as well... Like, it's a tricky line I've noticed in playing scared versus playing responsibly. Like, theoretically, I could just attack with the Lefrith now, but... And I'm going to lose it, but I'm probably going to lose it next turn anyway if they Amuro it. But my Demi-Garrison's just hanging here doing nothing anyway. And we kind of wanted it to be our expendable unit, so let's do that. We do have our backup Lefrith anyway. If they rest one of them, they probably will rest the full health one anyway. So I think we are going to get to snake this gun tank out from under them. So if we want to use the Mu, now is the time to use it. Or do we hope we draw into that Sword Strike? But the Sword Strike sometimes is great in this matchup, but sometimes just isn't anything. And it would stop them from playing Gundam. And if they wanted to go Gundam this turn and Kshatriya next turn, they're not playing that Razel again for a while. So that does buy us a lot of time, and we get to keep their board clear, and we're going to keep suiting up with blockers. All right, let's do the bouncing, right? That's the tempo play. Where are the tempo deck? If they want to play it again this turn, they're not playing a big scary monster. There's the Amuro. We're going to let him take that out because we're going to lose it anyway. They'll repair 1. That'll be annoying, but it is what it is. And here we will block. And if they want to ping it with another gun tank, then they can. Just a GM, though. So we can block that again next turn. Do I want to finish off this gun cannon instead of setting up a blocker? They'll do 4 to my Unicorn. I'll have 5, but they can just ping that dead with a Kshatriya. But my Isle Strike isn't being utilized to its best potential in that scenario anyway. And we'll get to draw a card off of this. And if they don't have the Kshatriya, that's pretty good. If they have a pinger, that's a little annoying. Is that gun cannon a big enough threat? We're not killing it next turn with the Lefrith. It's sort of a waste to block it with the Isle Strike. Oh, and we can just sacrifice that anyway and put the Destroy mode in. And now we have a fresh unit with no damage on it. And we've got the Banagher back. Yeah, and then they don't get value off the ping. Yeah, let's do that. Right? We're trying to... They get a lot of value off of their Angshas, which this deck doesn't have, but a lot of lists do. And their gun tanks, as we just saw here. Like we get a small victory if they play those and they don't ping anything. That's a win for us, because their cards are at their best when they do the pinging. And if we don't let them do that, their cards are a little sub-rate. So that's great. And the Kshatriya can do 1 damage to our Destroy mode, but we'll put a Banagher on it the following turn anyway, and it'll be this big giant thing. So that won't really matter. And we'll just use it to pick off little guys. Yeah, we'll probably discard the other Unicorn. Well, maybe not. Because then I have I have a couple of attackers next turn. Like, maybe it's okay to get rid of this base. The 1/1s I don't like as much in this matchup, so the first Corsica does sort of matter. But every card in our... We could also... Yeah, we don't want to let the Benager go. Because then we might as well let the Unicorn Gundam go. Alright, anyway, we know we're gonna kill this gun cannon. And so that their pingers don't have value, we're gonna put this one in instead, and then... Like, if they ammo us again, then they destroy our base. And I'll be sad to not have this base, but we are in a good position to clean up their units. Because that means they'll be 2 cards down out of their 4, and that will have taken up most of their turn. They won't get to play the Razel unless it's another gun cannon, but that card doesn't scare us. Yeah, okay, we will discard the base. There are 4 other ones in the deck. We have blockers. I'm really sad to lose this Corsica, but doing that, keeping this Unicorn lets us be flexible. If they play the Kshatriya next turn, we'll be able to kill it with this and still get the Benager back and draw a card. Bye, Corsica. If we need a base, there's the Kshatriya, there's the Merida. We didn't let him kill off our Unicorn, so that's pretty great. We're not going to block. There's no value in that. We will block this GM if it attacks. A non-AI player probably wouldn't attack with it, but we might as well, because this thing's going to die anyway. Alright, now our Benager Unicorn can go kill that thing. Ooh! The pings. Yeah, even if we bring that down -3... it still dies. So we're just losing our Benager here. Okay. Let's get rid of the Unicorn. It'll be our suicide attack. I'm gonna discard this move, because I think this unforeseen incident's gonna come in handy. Or is it? Because, yeah, if we can get a pilot for this Isle Strike, Akira, or even another Benager. Because we will have Benager. Yeah, alright. But this can bounce, bouncing a 3 HP less enemy is a little less valuable. You mostly want it for a Sword Strike. But they don't have 2 AP units anyway that we have to care about, and we have this Isle Strike that works well with Akira should we draw one. So let's just get rid of this big threat now and not let it ping us anymore. Bye, Moo. Okay, so that's both our moves. Don't expect to see those anymore. The only reason not to attack in this now... If they want to kill it with like a link unit, that's fine. It takes 2 cards out of their hand, and it's going to kill whatever their link unit is. They don't have the full frontal package, so they're not going to have a big, beefy unit for that. If they did, we might hold off and wait till we can hold up an unforeseen incident. But we're the tempo game, so we do want to start... You're in a bad position with this deck if you haven't done any damage and you've been on defense the whole time, because then you can't leverage the fact that your opponent feels like they can die at any moment. If that makes sense. Okay, that'll be nice on a follow-up turn. Right, because that's the problem you can have. Like, Wing, they can take over a game when they go late enough. They're still bigger than we are as a blue-white tempo, but the problem they run into is they only have 3 shields left and maybe no base. And we maybe have 5 shields left, or perhaps all 6, and they're like, oh no, how do I get in there without lowering my defenses and making myself vulnerable to an attack? And that you ideally want to get red-blue in that same position. We do have them empty-handed now. We have 4 cards. So that's a pretty good place we want to be. We do not want to bounce this Razel back to hand, because this Merida is not very good down here on the Razel. It's much, much scarier on a Kshatriya or a Banshee. So even though it would be a funny tempo play, if they draw one of those cards next turn, we're going to feel really annoyed that we did that. So we're going to go. Jigen can't kill our Unicorn. Oh, that's interesting. I wish I could attack. Then I would take that out. But we can't. They got a base. That's annoying. They have this Vesalius, but they have to know to use it ahead of time. And we're going to get to play this Isle Strike as a defender. We could make it a 6/6, but then I can't attack with this Destroy mode next turn, which I think I want to do. And we'd just bounce the Jigen, and they'd have a 6 HP thing, and if they want to take out 1 shield, then, like, fine. not a big problem. They could still have a link unit because that base gave them a card. We get to draw a card with the Banager, though, if we keep this Unicorn Gundam destroy mode. Oof. This one is tricky. How do we want to do this? I guess if we have a really firm blocker here, yeah, we'll get to take out 2 cards. We don't need to, like, rush attack with this Unicorn Destroy mode anyway. Like, worst case, we put a Kira on it, you know? Like, we got a lot of options. And if we don't put the Banager on there, this Unforeseen Incident isn't doing anything, really. Like, right now, even at -3 AP, this Razel can... It can't kill the Isle Strike, but any pinger will do that. And so it sort of doesn't amount to all that much. We essentially wasted a card in our hand that could have been helpful and let them play out a unit that wasn't doing anything in their hand. Okay, we will play the Banager. We will return the Jigen to hand, so they can't... They could have attacked the Jigen into the Unicorn Gundam and put it as an awkward position where we're like, do we block that? And if we don't, which we probably wouldn't, they could play a little pinger and get value off of it that way. So, but we have our nice 6/6 blocker here. If necessary, it can bust a base. Bust a base. They're drawing cards instead. That's good for them. So here we will block. If they want to block with their Gundam, they're going to get to tap the Isle Strike anyway. Now it'll be hard for them to ping our thing to death in 1 turn. And they just have 2 Jigens they had to pay full price for. Yeah, we did get the Sword Strike, but you can't anticipate, you know, having, I don't know, like, we did, there are 4 for us to draw, but I think the Mu was served better in doing the tempo game plan that we wanted it to do, right? We're buying our time, we're going to clear the shield, we're going to get rid of another shield too, I think, because now we can race them. Because we're going to play this big Unicorn Gundam this turn. If we draw a pilot for the Sword Strike, great. We get to attack with those units next turn. If not, we just play 2 units out and go wider than they do. And we put this is what the tempo deck can do well. It puts the opponent in an awkward position. When they want to be aggressive, they don't have that opportunity because they're going to lose the race. And they have 2 cards. We will have 2 cards next turn. Like, but we'll have a 3rd unit. I guess they'll have 3 cards. We're just going to kill them. We can rest a unit. If this were Kira, I would attack that Jigen instead of the shields. Because that's a free attack for us. I got no beef with that. But since we don't, I think it's better to go face. Alright, and that wasn't a pilot, so that's good for us. They have... Oh, that's the wrong key. They have a good thing there. We're playing out this Unicorn Gundam because... we get to... it's going to eat up most of our resources on a turn. We only can play 1 thing this turn anyway. So I'd much rather be able to play 2 things next turn. Instead of drawing another 3-cost thing and then we can't do Unicorn Destroy mode and this in the same turn. Ironically, we could have done this, but I think this is the better play. We're winning the race here. We're going to have 4 units. They're going to have 3. They're going to be down to 1 shield. It doesn't even matter if it's a base, because our Unicorn Destroy mode can kill it with 1 hit. That's what's nice about them. Even without the pilots, they're pretty dangerous. If we had a pilot for the Sword Strike, we could bounce the Jin, hit this Jigen, and then they're not really doing much with this Delta Plus next turn. Though probably it would just be smarter to bounce the Jin and get a shield anyway. And then they have to find a base next turn or they're going to lose. But we didn't draw the pilot, which is fine. We're just going to play our units and let them worry about what's going to happen next. Hey, that Banager will come in handy. So the AI... Hey, that Kira will come in handy. Well, thanks. These are where all our pilots have been. Yeah, here we go. They couldn't really trade, so they're in kind of an awkward position there. And look, another Razel. And we're going to take this one. We'll let Demi Garrison go in first. Nothing there. And Unicorn Destroy mode. You've been a workhorse this game, coming in early. We'll rest you. Doesn't matter. So there we were able to sort of run them out of cards, outvalue them, not give that Kshatriya much value when it came down, kill it right away. That is ideally how it should go, right? And then we got aggressive there at the end because we were in a position where we could make... Their units couldn't trade in with ours at that point without throwing too many of them away. That Delta Plus probably should have gone after the undamaged Unicorn Destroy mode, but it's a little moot with the board that we had at that time. So, that's where trying to be aggressive is helpful. Our mulligan hand ended up being pretty nice. All right, let's go to game 2. All right, now we're going first, and that can make a lot of our curves a lot more awkward. Like, if we were going second, we could go Lefrith into the base and maybe even have Unforeseen Incident up for something and then go to Isle Strike, but we're pretty far behind here. But then again, we don't have that many great turn 2 plays anyway. Moo. Or a Demi Garrison could be good, and if we can survive the early onslaught, our turn 3, our Lefrith and Unforeseen Incident can do some stuff. There's also Overflowing Affection that we could draw in any of these next 2 turns to help us dig for something more useful, probably pitching this Unicorn Destroy mode. There's 2 others in the deck, so we don't need it right away anyway. We got lucky with our mulligan last hand, but what are we really looking for? 4 Demi-Trainers, and that might not even be good if they use Close Combat on it. It does take up their turn, but they may already have... They don't have to play it right away anyway. They can play their 2 units first, then play that and another 2/2 on turn 3. We're going to try not mulliganing and see how that goes. Another Lefrith. Okay, so if they don't bust our base or we don't think it's the right time to play a base... Alright, so no value on that. They've slowed themselves down by trying to go aggressive here. They will get to kill our base next turn, which isn't great, obviously, but at least they had to slow themselves down surprisingly significantly. That one resource does help buy us some time, which is what we want. We're the tempo deck. Let's see, okay. Demi-Trainer's interesting. So I actually think we're going to play the Corsica. And here's why. The later we play Corsica, the worse that Talgeese 4-2 becomes, because there's so many ways for them to kill it. Usually a Kshatriya and Marita, and they can take it out in 1 turn. So you don't want to play too close to that, because you'll get no value out of it. They would need exactly Sayla and Gun Cannon to finish off the Corsica base next turn, because otherwise they're only attacking with 3 AP, and that's not enough to do it. And then next turn, we could double Gundam Lefrith and Demi-Trainer, and hold up Unforeseen Incident if we wanted to do that. Yeah, okay. Let's play the base now, and let's maximize our window with it. And we have a Kira if we wanted to do that, and Sword Strike, depending on what they play next turn. So that was a pretty nice draw. The Kira will get to sort of mow down any of their units. Talgeese will get to finish off some stuff too. They did have the Sayla, but clearly not the Gun Cannon. Yes, and it's just a GM and probably another... No, okay. So they could have played another unit there, and that would have been really bad for us. It's not super exciting. Well, okay, if we do play this Kira this turn, we mow down their whole board, and we still have the Kira and Sword Strike. We don't have anything to bounce with these Isle Strikes, but that's not the end of the world. Because, again, they could still Amuro us, and then... Well, but then we'd still have a Lefrith. But then... We have to trade our Isle Strike? No, because we get the -2 on that. Do we want to just wall up here? Like, we'll take out their 3/3, but then do we want these 2 Lefriths to stop their attackers? Because we're not full on in aggro mode yet, and there are more links. There are essentially 5 cards we could draw that could link with Sword Strike, and there's only 3 other cards that could link with these Isle Strikes, and we have 2 of them. And we will get to bounce a unit, if there are ideally any targets left. We definitely know, okay, we definitely know we're killing off this Jin. That's just great value for us. We drew a card off the Corsica. The Corsica essentially took out 2 cards of theirs, and that Talgeese is really fragile in this matchup anyway. They got close combats. The Kshatriya Marita obviously can take it out on the turn it's played. Super annoying. They could Gundam it to death, right? They could Amuro Grandpa Gundam, attack into it with this GM, Gun tank finishes off the base, and Amuro gets to hit a shield. They get to play the Jigen cheap next turn. Well, they would have played the Jigen if they had one already, because they have one of these resources open. Okay, I'm going to play the Lefrith. I think that lets us be the most flexible. And if they do the Gundam thing next turn, our Kira Isle Strike can kill it. It's not quite the Gundam, but it's pretty similar. All right, they're going to get to take that out. We're going to not block, and that way we can block another thing. I'm going to... It doesn't really matter which one of these I block, and I can kill the other one later anyway. So it's really like, which one do I want to bounce back to their hand with that Isle Strike? And I don't want them to have their pinger back, obviously, so we will block this one here. And the GM can finish off the base. But that's alright, it's going back to their hand. We're going to kill off this Delta Plus. And we've drawn all the Isle Strikes. And we're going to get to keep this Lefrith here. Bounce back. So we're only down to 1 AP on this, so it is in pingable range. Yeah. Okay, they don't have the pilot for her, though. For the Kshatriya, so that's nice. Okay, and now we can just play 2 big blockers. I could also... Alright, here's what I'm actually going to do. Going to play the Isle Strike. I'm going to play the Demi Garrison. And when they attack with the Kshatriya, we'll get to block with the Isle Strike and give it -3 AP and get a favorable trade there. If they have a link unit, that's bad for us. We will utilize you. We will play this. That's basically a Kira thing. And they have another one. Okay. Well, we don't care about that. That's fine. The Demi Garrison can run into that. There's that GM we knew about. So we got lucky they didn't have too many pilots. Oh, they had, like, mismatching pilots. So that was a lucky break for us. Yeah, let's get value out of this Demi Garrison. Just finish that off. They have 2 cards here, but they took 2 cards of ours, but we took out 2 cards of theirs because they had a pilot. And now I think we will play... We are going to get to play... Okay, we're going to play the Sword Strike. We're just going to be efficient here on our resources. And we're going to get to switch over now to an aggressive game plan. We will block here with the GM. We will block the GM with our Lefrith. And this Isle Strike has damage already. If they had a Merida, they would have been able to kill it off before I even got the chance to block. So let's sacrifice it. We'll get to trade with them. There's a Jin we don't care about. And they have something in their hand they're holding on to that's expensive. That has me a little suspicious. We're going to draw some cards. That's going to help us pull ahead here on the card advantage train. We have another Kira Yamato for this Isle Strike. Though I think I'll be a little shady and play it on this Sword Strike. My Razel is going to finish off their base, and our Sword Strike's going to get a tempo win by bouncing that Jin back to their hand. And nothing gets the unit. They have an Amuro, which is slightly annoying. But because of that, we're going to play this Isle Strike. If we didn't have another blocker, I would have attacked with the Lefrith, because if they Amuro something, if they Amuro into a link unit, they're going to tap it anyway, so we might as well get value out of it. But we do have a second blocker, so that Amuro will only be so effective. And Vanager really lets us start to explode. Okay, they didn't have anything to link with it, which is fine. We can't Sword Strike it, so we really only got to do one thing with it. They finally did draw that Merida, but at a bad time. So let us attack. We're not going to use that. Oh no, why did I do that? Oh, that was so stupid. Oh, that was really dumb of me. Oh, I feel so annoyed at myself. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Very annoyed at myself. That was a really stupid thing of me to do. This unforeseen incident is going to let me bail out a little bit. And they use their pilots perhaps too aggressively. I wouldn't have done that in paper. Obviously, it's me talking and everything, blah, blah, blah. All right, we have these blockers, too, to finish things off. We're going to give that one the -3. There we go. And then if they want to try to kill it with this Razel, maybe we let them. Because worst case, they have another 2/2, and like we don't get to bounce that back, but so what? And we use 3 cards to take out 2 of their cards, and that Kira actually also hit a shield and... Baba Hamana Hamana, what am I trying to say? And bounced a unit, so we really got another card and a half out of them too. Okay, now we can attack with Razel, because there's nothing scary going on over there. They got a Merida. Okay, we don't care about that. Rest that. And another Merida. Here's where all their Meridas are. They'll get to link whatever they want. We're just going to go all in at this point. Because even with the Merida piloting something... Ugh, base. That's sort of annoying. Okay, we're going to play this other Unicorn Destroy mode. I probably should have played this Unicorn Gundam there too. We had the resources for it, and it maximizes our chance of killing them next turn, no matter what they draw. But what they've drawn is not anything very exciting, so it ended up being moot anyway. There's our overflowing affection, but we don't really need you now. We'll tap you. We had to hardcast these Unicorn Destroy modes. They never saw their Benager. We'll let Razel. We'll let you go win today. Okay. Both times we defeated our opponent in this video, they had no cards in their hand by the end. And we had a couple. We had at least a couple. 2, 3... maybe 4 in the first game, I don't quite remember. And we did it by trying to get valuable trades there. This list has less pingers. Though red-blue doesn't seem to be too hot on Anksha these days anyway. Some people obviously really, really love it, but many people don't and don't run it, or they run maybe 1 or 2. Full frontal changes that math a bit. Also, if you have the baby Kshatriyas, then their Merida can come out earlier and do a ping with each attack, but quite frankly, if they're doing that, I much prefer that than giving it to Banshee or giving it to Kshatriya. So, I don't know, they probably did themselves a disservice by putting those pilots on both of those units last turn, but on that same token, we would have just gotten to bounce one anyway. And we even could have done a thing where the Unicorn Destroy mode took out a shield, tapped the other thing that we weren't bouncing, and then Sword Strike can just kill that for value because of the -2. So the computer maybe felt like it needed to do that to have a chance to survive, but our board was really beefy by the end there. They did get a couple deltas. They did get some Kshatriyas with some pings. It just ended up not being the end of the world for us. Maybe that's the way to think of it. If they are going to come out with the hard aggro start, it means they'll probably have less top end later on to hit us with. And then we can kind of keep that in mind, and once we stabilize, then we can really go in and make them have to draw that high end top end. But even if they have 1, it's usually 1, or maybe 1.5. And we didn't even get to draw that many extra cards off of this. We got 1 off the Corsica base. We didn't have any Benagers to go crazy and draw cards with, right? We just saw a couple Kiras. We just happened to find all blockers, which was good in this matchup. That Corsica base put in work. We didn't take any shield hits. We were able to manage that game very well. I don't know. I know here in this video it kind of looked easy, but it doesn't really feel this way usually in practice. Obviously, a human's going to be better than an AI in some respects. Though in some respects, that might be the technically correct play, putting those pilots on those units the turn before, to make sure that you would survive another turn. A human maybe wouldn't do that, but all they get to do then is rush a Delta Plus, and we got to bounce something back to their hand and still hit a lot of their shields, so, what did that even do for them, right? Maybe they don't play the Merida in hopes of getting a couple of Banshee hits in. They do have enough cards to first strike 2 of our units to death. I don't know. I don't know if we learned super much of what we needed to learn for this video about how to deal with it. Or I guess maybe just I've been getting unlucky in games I've lost, and they've been getting unlucky in games they've lost, and skill hasn't come down to it yet. That seems unlikely. I didn't discover any of the plans I utilized here. It was about getting reasonable trades, mulliganing for smart hands, and getting a lot of value out of the cards when we played it while minimizing the value of their cards. And we did that plan here, and it worked. So why in paper does it feel like it doesn't always work then? Or am I like results oriented, you know? Was I not keeping track of if those games I had to mulligan and I mulliganed really crappy? Or they mulliganed into a god hand that was going to be hard for us to beat anyway? You know, 2 units into piloted Delta Plus into piloted Kshatriya, like that would be hard to deal with. I don't have a great answer for you here. It's sort of an anticlimactic video, I'm sure. This is why normally I try to come in with a specific thing that I already have learned and we try to figure it out. This one had just been sort of stumping me. But I guess the plan does work and maybe my sample size is small. It's probably less than 15 games. That sample size is nothing. Well, hopefully you were able to get some valuable input out of this video. You could tell me some things that I'm not considering when playing this matchup. You can tell me some things the Red Blue player should have done differently that would have made my job harder, and then I can try to plan around that. You can also just message and let me know what matchups or decks you'd like to see on the channel next. I'm happy to take a look at that and have done a few suggestions based on comments before. Likely will do so again. Until then, though, have fun at your weeklies and take care.